Welcome to the 10th session where we are using ancient wisdom to meet the new goal of education and create the basis of a well-being curriculum. We've seen the IKS ways of knowing, the international knowledge systems ways of knowing, that after Pratyaksha, Anumana and Upamana, we have discussed the importance of Shabda Pramana, and we have found that the difference from the current knowledge system is that IKS creates character development because it relies on Shabda Pramana or awakening the voice of the conscience within the human being. We have also discovered that purified intention is a necessary condition for it to become a sufficient condition. What is happening when nothing is happening? Would that not be the subtlest of the subtle? What can you hear just above sense perception? Let's explore this today. The use of sense perception as a guide to Upamana and Anumana led society to social pain for 150 years. Sense perception experiences only the gross reality. Ethics, character, etc. are subtle. How to teach the subtle while living in the experience of the gross reality? This was the challenge facing ancient wisdom across traditions. Hence, they sought to identify the subtlest of the subtle first. The subtlest truth was revealed. It was the revealed truth. Its nature has some similarity in otherwise totally different traditions. Look at this video. What does this symbol mean to you? Does it have any commonality to all religions of the world? Write down your thoughts. Do you think writing a daily diary can make you a better human being? Write down if you agree or disagree with this practice. Would you like to plan and practice any one technique of IKS shared in the last session? Kindly elaborate on it as you write down before we start the session. Current knowledge system starts from sense perception, a gross view of creation. It is unable to comprehend the subtle quantum truth. IKS starts in the opposite way. From the subtlest it goes to sense perception. Can this happen? Can we use current knowledge systems theory and make the twain of IKS and CKS meet? In the last session, we concluded that there is a scope for IKS to contribute to CKS. There is a philosophical basis in personalism philosophy to explore IKS as it seeks to transform character just like IKS does. By using IKS's concept of ether for human transformation and through practices, it shapes character. Thus we found is in line with Western thought from Aristotle to current scientific ideas we have explored. In this session, we will explore the philosophy and practice that enables this. More so, we will attempt discussing it in a way that appeals to believers, non-believers, and skeptics. Let us start with the first building block of character in IKS, a recognition of the importance of the fifth element of ether. To explore the sky or ether element, IKS sought to recognize it and give it an identity first. It had no shape or form, so how to identify it? From the start of civilizations and the development of religion, there has possibly been some exploration of the sky. Humans have probably explored how nature has expressed itself using a form. The numerous shapes of flora, fauna, animal kingdom, and humans are all expressions of nature. The hills, the rivers, and oceans are other expressions of the same nature. Philosophers like Spinoza, who thought in these terms, are still rated by Stanford Encyclopedia as the most relevant today. This encyclopedia states that, and I quote, of all the philosophers of the 17th century, Spinoza is amongst the most relevant today." Unquote. In IKS, they concluded that the element sky cannot have a shape or form, but thunder and lightning emerges from it, and as the sun glows in it, so it can be the space where light and sound exist. And they explored nature to find the sound of the sky in the hollow bamboo or the sound of ocean waves. The existence of sound and light from the sky is recorded in many religions. Moses' 10 commandments were easily accepted as nature or God's commands. Baruch Spinoza too looked upon nature as God. Einstein too was influenced by Spinoza's ideas. Let's review the importance of the elements. Ether, the very first, is often ignored. Its representation is through the sound of Om in IKS. Here in IKS, Shabd Praman or voice of nature moves from outside, as in the 10 commandments, to a revealed truth inside humans, as in the Vedas. From this it moves to revealed truth within as a voice of conscience. The sound hidden in the hollow bamboo, it found, would reverberate within the individual too. This is because the human being too is part of nature. So long as the individual is full of himself or herself, he or she cannot empty the mind. Once that is achieved, the sound of nature should reverberate within each human. Its purpose of such search and education is to purify intentions, to discover and awaken the voice of conscience. All its practices sought this. The logic given here on the importance of Om, or its explanation, or even its need, may be agreed to or not, depending on one's inner nature or bent of mind. But the end result is to have a purified set of intentions. This is the way character development in IKS took place. It is called dharma, or the ability to indulge in voluntary self-discipline within the boundaries of behavior that defines human essence. If sense perception defines it, then the animal kingdom too uses sense perception of gross elements to lead to totally different conclusions for behavior. Humans should use different conclusions. Dharma, or righteous conduct according to social norms of humans, is the expression of character that is developed by education using this Indian knowledge system, which has always been an international knowledge system. This is based on practices that awaken the inner voice of conscience. Some explanations given in this session may appeal more to you than others, because those explanations are also meant for those who disagree with your view. This session will convey the idea of how character can be built using the rising of consciousness in the inner ether within all of us. It is designed for A. Agnostics and non-believers, B. Those who believe in religion, and C. Those who wish to look at the eternal righteous conduct or the Sanatan Dharma way. IKS recognizes that each individual is unique. Apart from social and parental influences that shape the individual's ideas, there is another variable too. This is intrinsic to each. This is the individual's predisposition. Some things naturally appeal to some and do not appeal to others. Tastes for food differ, for example. Nutrition can be achieved through alternate foods also. Similarly, as tastes of ideas differ, we can understand things in a different way. Hence, the goal of righteous conduct can be achieved through various routes in IKS. Irrespective of personal belief, the tradition of IKS is to be sensitive to all the ways that individuals, according to their inner proclivity, believe in and adhere to, which lead to righteous conduct. The existence of the element space is an experience. It is beyond the sense perception, the human mind, and the average intelligence of animals. Agnostics and non-believers will agree to the statement. But let us see now, say how that thousands of people are seeing a thing, say thousands of times. All are using their sense perception, their mind and their brain. Despite using all human faculties, they are not able to figure out something. Then suddenly someone gives a perspective that nobody has imagined. This is called inspiration. Where does it come from? Not from sense perception. It may come from the mind or the brain, but there are some insights that were beyond any earlier thought the mind explored. Where could be its source? Is it from beyond the mind and brain? All use their brain and mind. Do we admit the existence of such a space? IKS, in fact, calls it space or ether. It says that sound exists there. It is revealed when the search is deep, very deep and single-minded. It is revealed for the highest use when consciousness is purified. It is revealed as the voice of conscience also. OECD seeks reflection before action. Where does it come from? Space or ether? Is it beyond the mind, guided by sense perception? What is the source of inspiration? IKS, atheists, skeptics and academicians all recognize the subtle. IKS begins by concluding that the subtlest revelations are the final truth. The recognition of the subtle is universal, irrespective of faith or belief. Skeptics and atheists too must be using it. Everyone, for example, celebrates subtle humor. It is generally recognized that those capable of subtle humor are more refined in case the humor is in good taste. Atheists too believe that the universe was created at some point of time. Bill Dunn, who gives a definition of atheism which may be useful for some to consider if they agree with its scientific basis. If we try to explain how the universe got created, he states that the atheist's view sums up to, and I quote, chaos plus chance plus time is equal to intricate precision, unquote. Believers and others state that this is too difficult, while skeptics and atheists believe in it. Patrick Supps of Stanford, writing in The Aims of Education, we discovered in the last session, states about Aristotle's ethics that, and I quote, the line of argument is subtle and difficult to lay out in simple form, unquote. The opening line of ethics states, and I quote, every art and every inquiry and similarly every action and pursuit is thought to aim at some good, and for this reason the good has rightly been declared to be that at which all things aim, unquote. The subtle is thus the basis of education, even in current knowledge system, though they admit that it is difficult to lay out in simple form. IKS offers this simplicity. For believers, religion finds that the subtlest sky contains their revered sounds as a word. The word is revealed and descends from ether or sky. The syllables A and M are common to Om, Amen, Amin in three religions. They are the basis of human faith for thousands of years. Current knowledge system says that faith is one of its ways of knowing. Moses' 10 Commandments, Jesus and the voice of Master, the revelations of the Holy Quran, all came from an area that is beyond sense perception. IKS identifies the source from where the revelations came as ether or sky. It calls such wisdom as Shruti, the word revealed by using purified intentions. Those who hear it never claim authorship of it. They call themselves mantra drashtas or seers of the truth. Where did they see the truth? They must have seen the revelation within or above their mind space. Is this evidence of ether within us? The Bible too admits the importance of the word. IKS too says the same. The Bible says that in the beginning there was the Word was with God, the Word was God. IKS gives the same importance to the word Om. IKS states that it signifies the origin of the universe. All things appeared from its vibration. From the radiation of selfless love of the source of creation, the vibration of Om appeared, and all materialization in the universe resulted thereafter. That the alphabets match in all major religions gives evidence that the matching is not random. Divinity descends, humans ascend. Education, does it need to ascend? This is the question we address. For believers in religion, the concept of ascent of man and descent of divinity is not new. The challenge for education is to make humans ascend towards divinity. How does the concept of ascent or descent start? Just as elements are viewed from the point of ascent and descent, so is the divine word in religions. Its divinity descends to humans to make them ascend. Ascension implies going above fire and air to ether. This concept of ascent of humans and descent of divine to help them, that is given in IKS, is there in other religions too. For example, and I quote, essential to learning the history of the Quran is the study of the stages of its revelation, which is usually referred to by the term Tanzil of the Quran, unquote. Literally the descent of the sending down of the Quran from the heavens to the earth. You can check the reference in the lecture notes. Two things are clear: that Islam believes in revelation and the concept of descent. Christianity similarly is a revealed religion. Where does this revelation come from? Can an eternal truth that comes from a source that is unstable? Air is moving, hence ether is the source. In this way, the basis of sense perception, that is the 5 elements, are related to this concept. Let's see the Sanatan Dharma's way. It used the 5 elements idea thousands of years ago, and also the abstraction of revelation and ascent or descent. The session on eternal ideas of righteous conduct, as in the Vedas, and importance of its fire sacrifice gave an important lesson. It revealed the dividing line in creation between developing character and losing it. This dividing line was fire. Of course, all elements are worshipped, but why is fire used in IKS and other religions too for worship? To recap, the IKS points out that the first element in creation was ether and the sky represents it. The second element was air and the wind represents it. The third element is fire, the fourth water, and the fifth earth. All creation consists of various permutations and combinations of these elements. In the process of creation, these were used. In the process of preservation, their combinations are preserved. Finally, in the process of creative destruction, these combinations return back to the elements. Ether is beyond it. Character in humans is developed if consciousness is elevated or goes upwards towards ether. How do the 5 elements help in the process? What is the basis of rituals in IKS? It is obvious that fire goes upwards and water goes downwards. We pray to fire to take our consciousness upwards in the Vedas. We separately pray to water and earth so that they restrict attachments. The human body is primarily composed of water and is destined to go down to the earth. But the mind can travel upwards and view the larger truth. It is obvious to even a cameraman that an aerial shot gives us a larger picture. IKS uses ideas that enable humans to see the larger picture, the larger truth, and live a larger life. IKS then goes to the source that created the five elements. Physicists discussing nothingness and what was there before the Big Bang. IKS has explored this topic thousands of years ago, while physicists are discussing this now. All this must have happened in ether, IKS says. It states that the sound Om, composed of the letters A, U and M, was the origin of the universe. When the attribute less was stirred into activity, it required a will. At the dawn of this creative will, the sound Om manifested. Why does a sound manifest? It concluded that when any equilibrium is disturbed, the vibration produces sound. Science concludes that any vibrating object creates a sound. Put a tuning fork in water and find out. The universe during creation was full of vibrating objects. Could it have been possible without any sound? Scientists today would agree. IKS explores this sound. IKS looks not only at the biggest but also at the smallest sound. When the eyelids move and meet, every time an eye moves, there is vibration and it produces a small sound that we cannot hear, but it exists. What is the sound that creates and sustains the vibration of breath in our human body? IKS concludes that behind the so, hum of breath, if so, he, God, and aham, I, ego, are removed, only the mantra Om remains. Hence, Om is considered the life principle in IKS. A question some may ask is that, is Om a mantra, a mathematical formula to solve life's equation? IKS takes its logic further. If the first sound is found, it becomes logically the mother of all sounds. Just as air, forced out of the reeds of a harmonium, produces the seven swaras or musical notes of Indian music, the one sound Om should then be the root of all sounds in the world. This sound of human breath, Om, sustains life. Similarly, IKS concludes that this sound sustains all of creation, giving it sustenance and strength, just as to the human body. It is called the highest mantra. But what is a mantra? Is it a collection of words? It is not. It is a compounded set of words pregnant with enormous significance. The man in the mantra makes the human mind reflect and understand, and Tra helps to release the mind from bondage. Some researchers have called it a mathematical formula. It solves the complex equation of life by liberating the mind from bondage. The mantra Om is the connection that humans have with the source. What is the way of testing if this connection was used and the efficacy of its use? What evidence can prove that IKS way of searching is fruitful? How to check if its analysis is scientific and finding the first sound has helped IKS? The first scientific expression of humans is language. The development of Sanskrit by those using such analysis led this language to be compared to a Turing machine today. Hence, the power of language is the first validation of its nature, of the scientific nature of search of IKS and the results. Language is the first expression of distinction of humans from the rest of creation. How well the language is developed reflects the ability to achieve human potential. What has led to the development of this highly successful language, highly scientific language? It was not just the analysis, but the use of its practices in daily life. We concluded the last session with saying that Aristotle and IKS both state that practices form character. The disciplined character of Sanskrit reflects the discipline of human character. What practices led to it? Unity of thought, word and deed led to development of character in IKS. The discipline that it created reflected in the language created, Sanskrit. The grammar of the Sanskrit language is a proof of the power of this unity of thought, word and deed, using its link with Akasha or sky or ether. Many researchers find that the Vedas are simple hymns. Is it difficult for other languages to understand the context of the Vedas? Are these languages not used to probing the scientific etymology of words unique to Sanskrit to comprehend dimensions of their deep meaning? The root of the word gives the dimension from which it has been visualized. What dimension gives the most elevating feeling reveals the experience of the Drashta. There is no scope for lower order truth in the search for the highest truth. This is the attitude of a seeker, and the Vedic tradition is only for the seeker of truth. Similarly, the philosophies of IKS work at a deeply psychological level. They reform a worldview. They transform the origin of thought within, not just inform about the possibilities of constructive human thought. It is difficult to explain the difference to those who refuse to enter the area of experience from the area of thought and conjecture. Hence, don't be disheartened by others' inability to understand the depth of these philosophies. Their apprehensions may be as hollow as the critic's understanding of righteous conduct in Vedas. IKS is not about transforming them, but it deals with self-transformation only. What was there before the Big Bang, before creation? Did an awareness or will or absolute balance enable creation that is in dynamic balance? Thousands of seers of IKS explored this through inner search for thousands of years. The answers that they all received were similar but expressed differently. They concluded that creation and sustenance isn't a random event, as few scientists today conclude. That such randomness has a low probability is agreed by even some scientists. The fact that a dynamic balance sustains the universe implies that an absolute balance is the source. IKS explored the nature of this balance. For the common public, they used the word God, but these scientists of IKS always referred to it as Brahman, not God. This source, in absolute balance, Brahman, causes all multiplicity. What process makes the infinite into finite? How does the formless take form? They concluded that the formless Brahman is only radiating selfless love, as creation is not serving any selfish purpose. From its radiation of love, a vibration emerged as Om. That is how all materialization took place. For ease of understanding, its radiation was compared to the sun. The source is awareness. Materialization results from it. Comparing CKS, that is current knowledge system, and IKS, some may ask, can sense perception, current knowledge system's first way of knowing, seek consciousness, prana or energy or vibration of Om? IKS found that creation consists of three principles: radiation, vibration, materialization. Sense perception, current knowledge system's first way of knowing, is limited to experiencing materialization only. IKS looks at raising our consciousness above materialization. To declare a distinction of humans from animals, it uses faculties beyond sense perception shared with them. The human body and everything else that sense perception sees has a form and shape. From materialization, how to go back and merge in radiation, that awareness which caused creation. To do this, IKS uses the first vibration, the seed of creation, Om. The mind is the challenge in developing this awareness. It fluctuates like the moon when materialization attracts senses and distorts perception. The subtle is always invisible, and the seen is taken to be the only reality by the mind. Therefore, IKS uses the intellect to give discrimination to guide the mind. Discrimination is likened to the path of radiation and the sun, a symbol of intellect that guides us to comprehend radiation. That's the importance of the physical sun that IKS prays to. A tuning fork experiment adjusts water level to make vibrations of the tuning fork create resonance. Now we are trying to understand how the vibration of Om can help us raise our consciousness. That is our current challenge. And to do this, we are using a tuning fork experiment to see a scientific basis of this. Because a tuning fork experiment creates resonance which amplifies and elevates the sound, and we need to elevate ourselves from sense perception through sound to a higher level of consciousness. To create this, the resonance a second time, the water level should be around 3 times the length of the first air column. This can reveal further secrets like frequency and velocity of sound. Hence, vibration and water levels reveal secrets. The human body has approximately 60% water, and the universe is all energy, reverberating as Om. Resonance is an experience that needs practice, like adjusting any tuning fork. Nature is the first teacher and its ways reveal its mysteries. IKS learns from them, experimenting within the body, which too is a part of nature, and hence would be using nature's secrets to reveal and to learn how to elevate human consciousness from sense perception using the sound, and it has to use a syllable which has a power in it to take it back to the source. IKS finds that consciousness resonates and elevates us if we use Om chant within us to merge with this universal energy. How to judge that Om represents never changing ether? When other letters are uttered, the lips, the tongue and the cheeks and the jaws are in action. When we pronounce Om, none of these move at all. Hence, Om is not dependent on anything. It is therefore considered imperishable among all sounds. The gross and the subtle are interdependent. From a gross question about our identity, the subtle emerges, and our subtle consciousness rests on gross food. Can human faculties and the 5 elements be used to explain the link between all things that are given names and express ideas? That is all that sense perception sees. Till now we have shown things that sense perception thinks are the only reality, that they emerge only from the subtle. Does the reality of quantum physics have different roots? Our first question, who am I, makes us give ourselves a name. Is this description subtle or related to sense perception? After the name we describe ourselves, we give names to describe everything in the world and the universe in words, using words. Hence, speech is more powerful than name. Now, where does speech come from? It comes from the mind. So, mind is the basis of speech. What makes the mind work? Our will makes the mind work. Hence, will is more fundamental than the mind. The basis of will is consciousness. Unconscious patients don't have the will to speak. Hence, a simple description of a gross body is dependent on the subtle. Similarly, all gross has a subtle basis. Can the subtle survive without the gross? Consciousness and will come from vital energy that food gives. Ask any starving man. Till now, we have seen how a sense perception related question of our identity has subtle roots. Is this subtlety closely linked to the 5 elements? We have just seen that the most subtle human consciousness is based on the most gross element of the earth. This is because earth produces food and its vital energy. To produce food, we need not only earth but also water. This is the second element. The process of water vapor going up and causing clouds and rain shows the importance of the fire principle, which makes the water vapor rise. Another example is that when we run and the body heats up, what is produced? Sweat is produced. Using such examples, ancients inferred that fire is the basis of water. Fire itself comes from air. The air principle hidden in two stones or two dry twigs produce fire from it. This was the way inferences were made in IKS. The element air rests in space, and space is filled with Om. Hence, the only missing link is to be made by humans between us and Om to realize our potential. Rising in the 5 elements after realizing their significance is the syllabus of the Vedas. IKS does not accept that anyone is a non-believer. So long as a person has faith in oneself, he or she has faith in God. Because you tap the strength inside you to tackle an enemy, the voice of conscience that guides you to use your strength with compassion, mercy, helpfulness is God, as in the IKS. The IKS uses the mind to question where, when, how, what, who is the origin of the universe. This may take us beyond the mind too, unraveling originality and insights. IKS started with the view that each human being is born unique. Its purpose of education is to bring out this originality of each individual. A factory production line model of mass information dissemination was not its way of education. The teacher, through his or her life, demonstrated how he or she is bringing out his or her originality. How was this originality brought out? What were the catalysts? The catalysts were the practices of ancient wisdom. They brought out the individuality of each one. The first practice is to speak the truth and follow righteous conduct. The habit of silence was another practice. It helps you explore yourself and discover yourself. If you know your origin, you will know origin of all and everything. So IKS believes. The desire to reach the origin of any subject was awakened by the demonstration that the teacher gave through his or her life. Her or his life was the message to the students. The ability to reach the origin was created more by practices which will be shared later. The full range of practices will be shared later. Let us understand how agnostics, non-believers, can use IKS in a simple way, even if it is not the way of scholars and the learned. The slides that follow are adaptations from a forthcoming book. The application of knowledge is not only in life but also at work. Can these ideas have an application for businesses too, apart from the business of living life? Can we have a simple approach to understand and apply ideas learnt in this course? Let us ask such a question. In a simple way, how can we comprehend Om? Seeking forgiveness from scholars and the learned, let's look at this. Education is about searching for the truth. It requires questions. This requires we should have a questioning attitude. For example, we can question, is the earth round or is it flat? Does it go around the sun or does the sun go around it, etc., etc. Truth is found using questions. If we question to find the reality in all 3 periods of time, past, present and future, can we see 3 question marks coming together with their dots or idea merging into one? Is this a way of looking at and finding Om? Sounds of answers emerge from thought. Om is the source. Sound emerges from here to finally merge here. Who am I? Where have I come from? Where am I going? These 3 questions give the strategy of living life in business. Firms too find them useful to plan for future. Future strategy of firms depends on the past and present strengths and skills. Om is a universal guide. The one answer to a 3 time frame question is in the shared dot. The dot is underlined with the waning moon. The mind changes every day like the moon. That is about to be conquered by truth. So how to get tuned to this Om? It is through the sound of silence. We ask you to practice silent sitting. Well, if Om existed at the beginning of creation and sustains everything, it should be there in the silence of your sitting too. It is there, like the sound of a very small cricket repeating itself continuously. The way to hear it is not to try. If you try hard to listen to music, you may stop enjoying it. The same is with Om. Either you hear it or you don't. It's okay, both ways. If the mind is working on something, even when the body is silent, can't there be complete silence? Can there be complete silence? Silencing the mind takes many years, and according to IKS, maybe many lifetimes. So a big mistake is to hurry. I may not be able to hear Om or hear it often, but I am open to the possibility that I can hear it or may be able to hear it. Keeping the mind open to a possibility is scientific. This course always encourages a scientific approach. However, it encourages that the approach not be limited to the world outside, but be experimented upon in the world inside. The world inside starts working when we shut our eyes. We need to observe the world first, not jump into it first. Reflection before action is what the World Economic Forum also seeks. Observing is the only experiment we have to do. This course lays a deep emphasis on practice. Every attempt is made to make all the lectures very short. A 5-minute slot at the end of this lecture is being given for silent sitting. This is to enable the participant to mull over what is said. Whatever has been heard should be repeated in the mind so that it gets absorbed. Just as sugar is stirred in a cup of tea or coffee with a spoon, use the spoon of silence to stir the sugar of Indian knowledge systems in your mind. It takes some time for the tea or coffee to become sweet. Patience is very important. The perspectives shared in the course will seem meaningful only if such silent sitting is done to mull over what has been said. Else, the half an hour spent in delivering the lectures will be a waste of time. We welcome you to undertake an inner journey during these 5 minutes. Only then will knowledge that is outside you will become wisdom inside you. The time allocated for this is actually 20 minutes, not 5 minutes. The time should be increased gradually. This is also a time for the mind to take rest. In case it cannot do that, mull over whether the voice of the conscience has guided you at any time in life till now. We accept challenges for the physical body in games. In a gym, we can have a 20 minutes plank challenge. We may exchange challenges on the quantity of food we can eat. Can we go beyond such challenges to the second step of the Indian knowledge systems? Can we see if the mind itself can take rest and maybe stop working? Can we explore what will happen if it becomes zero? Remember, it is not good to challenge the mind. It rebels and makes you do the opposite of what you want it to do. It is far simpler to observe the mind. For doing this, first the physical body should move as little as possible. Observe the mind as it tells the body to move. You are not telling the body to move, the mind is telling the body to move. Observe the mind. Move away from the mind and see what it is forcing the body to do. Watch the mind as if you are sitting on a fan at a distance. When you are at home, Shavasana in yoga is a good posture for this practice. Try to first silence the body, then the mind. For those who have mastered this, they can try the next method. When you think of nothing, can you experience love without giving it a shape of a thing like your favorite food or a thing that you want to own or the physical form of a person? Can it just be love without an emotion to a person or a thing? Can it be love for the sake of love? How do you experience loving yourself? The purpose of this course is to help you discover yourself, that loving being beyond the body and the mind.